Okay, it is 8 minutes after. So call the meeting to order. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda. If I could get a mover, please. You can hold your hand up. Okay, Klaus. We have a seconder. Joe. Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Not seeing any. Thanks very much. Next item, minutes were circulated on the website as well as distributed. So I need a motion to approve the minutes as circulated, please. I need a mover. Danica, do I have a seconder, please? Oh, Dave? Oh, and Mikhail.
Yep.
Got lots of seconders.
Yeah.
All right. Call the question. All those in favor? Gain hands in the air if you would, please. Any opposed? Okay, none. Looks like none. Okay, so we're good there. We'll move into new business, and of course, very pleased to be able to present Dr. Dewey Caron this evening, and we're going to have Ian Farber do the introduction. So Ian, the floor is yours, please.
Okay, thank you, Bryce. It's hard to say in short words the history of Dewey Caron's beekeeping. He's retired from his official job. He was at the University of Delaware. He's now an emeritus professor at the University of Delaware, a professor of entomology and wildlife ecology. He's also associated with Oregon State University. In his retirement, he keeps busy by writing for beekeeping journals, writing newsletters, giving presentations such as similar to the ones tonight, teaching courses, beekeeping courses at all levels. He's just had published his 10th beekeeping book, and his textbook, Honeybee Biology and Beekeeping, is a classic. And it's about all that needs to be said. We're going to hear Dewey, and where you go, Dewey.
Thank you, Ian and Bryce. Thank you very much, and welcome all. Pleasure to be able to join you this evening via Zoom. I'm going to start my screen because you are enabled to sharing. So we'll get underway with talking tonight. Ian and suggested that perhaps this issue of reading our colony, particularly the Action Central, the brood frames, might be an appropriate topic. I know some of you are fairly newish in bees and some of you have a lot more experience. So I hope I'll be able to offer something for both of you, the more experienced as well as some of the newer beekeepers. If you want to put any questions in chat, we can handle those after we get underway, or I could do questions at the end if you unmute yourself, whatever is more comfortable. As we go along, if something doesn't make any sense or you see something and like to unmute and ask a question while I'm underway, that I don't mind that either. So whatever will suit yourself in terms of trying to get those questions that I'm not covering, try to get those answered. So let's talk a little bit about our warm-ups for the evening. So I offer these then as a way to get into some of the comments that I'm going to talk about. So first one is a question. What do bees do with their honey? Second, what does an allergic bee get? And a third question is, what is more unpleasant than being with a fool? So probably the first one kind of makes some sense to you. What do bees do with their honey? They sell it. Okay. And allergic bee, what does it get? It gets hives. And what is more unpleasant than being with a fool is fooling with a bee. So that's in a way of warm up. And I'll toss out another one here with another question. What do you see? What do you see on this particular visual? I'm not talking about that handsome fellow there to the left, but let's focus on the frame. So what do you see on the frame? Kind of particular, this one, this portion that I have circled. Okay, because reading our hive is a bit of perception of what might be going on. And looking at that frame, think of a time when you were on your back and relaxing, maybe after a hard day with your bees. You had your veil off and you're looking up at the clouds and you see in the clouds, oh, that looks like Snoopy up there, or that looks like a telephone pole with lines going out or whatever. So lie on your back and look at this frame and sort of the question, and what do you see? Some of you see some very practical things, but lying on your back, looking at clouds type of framing of this, what I kind of see is a bear or a dog. Here's the head, and here are the front legs, and here's the hind end, and it's racing because it has just been stung by a bee. So it's a racing to get away from being stung by a bee. So I don't know what you saw, but in my dreaming days, perhaps that's what I see in that one. All right, the hive is a book, is like a book. It has a cover, so we approach our colony and we look around. We look at the cover, and so we'll see perhaps on this hive on the left, we'll probably I think you'll see that it's sitting on a double hive stand. Looks like it has a screen bottom board. It's got 2 full-size depth boxes, either 8 or 10 frames. Then a line that's probably a queen excluder. And so above the queen excluder, we'd call that a super rather than a third brood box, perhaps. And then on top, it's got a brick and also probably a condition indicator. The item on the right is a quick look as you go to the county, and it will say that all is okay, or this one is weak, or this one is strong, or whatever might be the case, by positioning this this information material there at the top of the county. So that's our quick look. That's our look at the cover and look at the introduction and perhaps the beginning of the book in terms of what the author is trying to convey to us before we actually get into the body of the book. Now, every book is different, and so too every beekeeper are different. So here a look at 2 beekeepers. On the left, a backyard beekeeper. Couple colonies up on cinder block, has got a waterer there out front, has got a little building for extra supplies and extra hive bodies and coveralls to hang up, etc. Over to the left there. Has got a couple supers on the county on the left, one shallow and one full depth. And the other box probably is all brood, a yellow box, a checker box, and then a plain colored box there at the top, leaning forward so water doesn't accumulate. The middle is an obviously commercial beekeeper, 4 colonies on a pallet. The equipment kind of in bad shape. This is a rather large entrance here to the side of the colony. Telescoping covers because they're going to be moved on a truck. A big pile of discarded equipment, discarded hive bodies and frames exposed, etc. there in the background. And if we expand this, we would see some group of 4 over here and a group of 4 over there, etc. So, as we pick up the book, we want to find out some of this information because no 2 books are going to be the same, even though they might be the same category. Here's another look at standard beekeeping. This is in the state of Minnesota, and this is a backyard. And as you can see, these colonies, 2 of them in a backyard, are supered right up. And I would love to be able to say that that is what my colonies look like. And there's my easy chair to sit and watch the bees come and go. But it's not my apiary. I'm not blessed with crops that require 4, 5, or 6 supers. Oregon is not a really very good beekeeping state for honey, nor where I came from of 29 years of teaching at the University of Delaware. It too was not a very good state. And so 1, maybe 2 supers in a good year of honey for my strong colonies. So what is standard? No books are the same, and no beekeeping is the same. All beekeeping is local, obviously. We're getting a lot more people that are keeping their colonies in something that is not our traditional movable frame colony. So here's a long hive. So these are essentially 2 hives together, but you can use a follower board. You can use some standard equipment, but instead of the walls here, this has been replaced by, you can move frames. You can have, in this colony, 20 frames. Horizontally rather than 1 box on top of another box. That complicates a little bit looking for queen cells, but this allows you to put a couple weak colonies together to bolster colony with a swarm. By putting them on a nice high stand and then not supering very high, this is great for us in our third lifetime where we don't want to be lifting heavy boxes and bending over to do our inspections, etc. A number of people are going natural. So here's a traditional Langstroth hive in the snow and a log hive with its cap on top with the ice coming off of it. More having fun with bees and enjoying bees and seeing them and how they react in different structures. And in this case, likely to be promoting swarming because the log hive will be a smaller dimension and the bees will swarm from that. Top bar hives can be looked at. We can manage them to a degree. Have to be very careful in how we handling them, keeping them upright. Have follower boards. And again, this is another type of horizontal hive without foundation. And popular in Europe and gaining a little more popularity in the US is a bee house. So here is literally a house or a structure without the walls. And all of these are bee colonies. This is a triple decker in terms of the number of colonies. So in one place, this is a good number of colonies, very reminiscent of commercial beekeepers that will set down in their pallets of 4, will set down 72 colonies in one location as kind of as a minimum of their yard. So non-traditional, but in some ways managing colonies in still very traditional ways and relying on some of the same things in terms of how bees work, maybe more horizontal in these couple colonies and a drawback or a throwback to having colonies swarm a lot with keeping them in bee trees, but perhaps a more, quote, natural method of keeping them. So I don't know how you read a book, but again, like hive styles, there are different ways of reading a book. So here's a beekeeper in my home state. I was brought up in the state of Vermont, below Quebec, other side of the country. Then here's a beekeeper in the northern part of Vermont, and he's reading his book. He has come up in the winter to his colonies with the extra wrap, and he has a raptor tapped on the side of the colony, and he's listening for the bugs. So he's trying to determine in very early spring, you can see no leaves yet, and vegetation still frozen at night. He's trying to read his book to see what is happening to his colony in the overwintering period. So kind of a very casual way of looking at and reading your book. Here in the opposite side of the East Coast, down in the state of Florida, a beekeeper is hefting his colony. Here, the red colony. So he's got a hold of the bottom board from the back and hefting it up, trying to determine, reading his book, determine how strong that colony might be. So 2 very different styles, but trying to get at the same response. You know, how is my colony? How is it doing? Is it time that perhaps I've got to put my veil on and my coverall and do a little bit more than these reading from the outside? If you use a debris board, and here's one pulled out from the bottom of a colony, that's a marvelous way to read a book and get a lot of information. You can get information as to whether a mouse has moved in over the winter. You can get an information if you got wax moth with their droppings in the colony. Here you can tell from where the cappings of honey have fallen down, where the colony is located, and a good idea of the size of the colony. Just from just by reading the debris board, scraping it off, putting it back in empty, and then having a chance in your next visit to go ahead and read some more. You can read it whether there's moisture accumulation in the colony. Of course, we traditionally will read what kind of number of mites we might have in a colony by reading a debris board. Very easy, again, without much hive intervention. And of course, one of the first things we will do often in our colonies in the spring, after checking that they're alive, is we might then want to see what kind of size of the colony we have. So here's our winter wrap. We've taken off our cover where you have the inner cover, and we're then looking down between the seams, between the frames, to get an idea of the size of the colony. We really shouldn't do this unless it's about 50 degrees and the sun is out and there is no wind, because in some cases, this reading can cause harm, whereas the hefting or the debris board is non-interventive. So different ways of going into your book and getting your first read of what's going on in the colony. But really, to understand our bees and where they are, we need to get into the action central, where everything is going on in the colony, and that is those frames that have brood on them. So this does involve then a warmer temperature, 60 sort of a minimum. 60 would be 17, 18 degrees. In that range, 15 to 18 degrees, better. Above 20, even better. Sun coming over your shoulders, because so you can look at eggs. And if you've got two people that are working, then this read can go faster. And particularly in cooler temperatures on windy days, you don't want to have that book open too long because you can cause more harm. But as beginners, we need to figure out what is going on. As experienced beekeepers, we want to keep ahead of our colonies. They too quickly will get ahead of us. So it's ideal being ahead of them. And so sometimes with two people doing that reading, it will go faster and create less harm. Every time you open this book, you're going to create some degree of disturbance to the colony. The longer it is open, the poorer the conditions, the greater the amount of disturbance that you can create. So it's a balance. What we want to get out in information versus what we potentially can do as some harm as we read our book. So we have pulled out a page, or we started on one of the pages of our books, of one of the chapters. So I like to equate the looking at the brood area as a good mystery book, because as we look, sometimes we can solve the mystery by looking at a few frames, and sometimes the mystery just deepens as we get deeper into the book, and we really then get caught up in really what is going on, what's the story of this book, and we might need to look a little further. So looking at our half of a page here, half of the frame that we can see, light coming over our shoulder, what are some of the things that we're going to read? How are we going to unravel this mystery of the hive? We can see there's cap brood. There's a fairly large pattern of cap brood. And we can see pretty well right away that the cap brood seems to be all pretty much in the same stage. There are very few cells that are not capped over. And it would represent that this is a relatively good brood, solid brood pattern. We can see that they have some honey in the corners, chevrons of honey in both corners. We can see the honey cap cells look different than the brood cells. They look different. We can see there's still a good amount of bee bread in this colony. So all of the cells in this particular area are all cells that have had pollen stored in them and then converted to bee bread. Now, one of our mysteries right away with this frame, this page is, let's see, what are we seeing? What's part of the mystery of this book? Now, what suggest is, where are the adults? Why are there so few adults on the page? So something is missing. We haven't answered our mystery. Now, yes, we may have shaken that frame, certainly, of some of the adult bees to make it easier to see. But if we haven't, this is a very strange, because there isn't much of a cover of adult bees. And you can see the frame as we look down to the box below this. This is a 10 frame box. So we're looking at a frame that's from the near side. This would be like the 4th frame. So we're into the middle. It's not the first page of the first chapter. We're into the middle of the book. And why the coverage is so few adults? Again, knowing ourselves of how we're looking at frames, we may have purposely shaken them off. Doesn't look like it looking into the box. So, what's going on? What is the book trying to say? Now, remember, when we do this inspection, that was the 4th frame in. Remember, the colony itself, action central of the colony is a sphere, as illustrated by this type of a hive. And so what you're doing as you read a page of the book, you're taking a slice out of the starring. And as we read a frame, we're taking a slice out of the starring. The closer you are to the center, perhaps it can tell us more, but usually we start near the edge, not often the very edge, but near the edge, and we work into the starring as we would normally as we read our book, starting at chapter 1. And then going on through. So the story is cumulative as we go along. So that last frame that we looked at, if I can return, I'll go right back there. We may have been able to answer some of our question as we looked at frame 2 or frame 3 before we got to frame 4. Okay, just as you would in a book. All right, let's look at the frame there on the right. And again, we're looking at half of a page. This is further into a book. Again, this is not likely the first page that we start with our book. This is a frame further in. We can think of looking and telling the story by looking at several things consistently. For example, we would look at the sealed brood. Last time we looked at a sealed brood. Here's sealed brood. Here's a bigger pattern of sealed brood. But again, most of the cells have brood roughly in the same age. Perhaps these in the center are a little bit darker, so they're a little bit older than those near the edge. So reading our book, we're looking at a sealed brood pattern. We want to try to see if the pattern is healthy, and so that would be this looking at a solidness in the same age. And this looks pretty darn good, of relatively few cells that have been missed or did not hatch or were removed by the bees, and so they're not at the cap stage. So healthy brood pattern. We can certainly see some capped honey here in the corners. Not much, but a little bit of capped honey. So that's something else to do in our reading of the book. We will want to see if there are eggs, and this frame is not not evident that we're going to be able to see eggs. We can see if there are queen cups on this page of this book, and yes, there is one. There's a single one down here, so we can check that off. Do we see queen cells on this side of this page of this frame? Well, no, we don't. These are combs for extra comb of drone size cells for the bees to walk from one frame to the one frame of the lower box to the frame of the upper box. Condition of the cells, yeah, we can get a good quick look at that. There's a little irregularity up here where there's some honey, but there's no drone cells. There are relatively few that seem to be misshapen. Maybe there's a couple of misshapen ones here in this area, but relatively not so. So yeah, good. I like to see frames that have this nice solid worker pattern. We can look at the holder of that comb, and so that would be the frame, a well-assembled frame with our wedge top bar. I'll show you in a second. We have put foundation in here, and we have the foundation that has the gilded edge, the metal edge, but intact, seems to be solidly built. So good, that's part of our story. And whether we keep records or not, or our record is that block that's on top of the colony from the early slide that I showed, what we want to know in our as we're reading through our book is what has happened since last time. It's telling a story, but there's a past to the story, and there's going to be a future to the story. So what has happened since the last time? What's the change from our last inspection? And moving forward, as we have read our book, we finished our reading, what do we need to do? Do we need to do something? Do we need to add a super? Do we need to do some checkerboarding, add some empty frames? What might we need? Do we need to do something about swarming as it is now this time of year? So management that might be needed. So what does the good book say, bee book say? It can say a lot, and that we get all from reading one side of one frame. You see, we're not done. We didn't see if we could see eggs. Are there queen cells in this colony? We're not done with just one page or one chapter of our book, but we are beginning to tell our story and perhaps solve our mystery, or perhaps we're deeper into the mystery. Now here, I'm not looking at adult bee population because to take the photo, I shook the bees off. I pulled the frame up, I gave it a good air shake, and so these are just a few stragglers that didn't get shaken off of the frame. So here's that frame again for a little bit close up. I said the frame was in good shape. You can see it is. There's a little bit of propolis in the corners and on the ears, not much. Here's that queen cup now you can see that I mentioned. And you can now clearly see there are no queen cells here. There are no drone cells here. And you can see just looking in the corner where the bees want to leave it open to go from one side to the next, they're blocked because this foundation is the plastic foundation with the metal edges that have the imprint of the six-sided hexagonal worker cells. So they can't use that. So they're actually going around on comb. We know bees prefer to walk on comb rather than walking on wood. So this would be their easy way to go from one side to the other side by walking on comb, and from the lower box to the upper box. All right, so in our mystery story, we said on that frame, we don't see eggs. Just not possible, or we're not seeing eggs. So as we developed the story, if we were the writer, could we not have seen eggs because this colony doesn't have a queen? Some of you will agree that could be the reason we don't see eggs. So yeah, we could tick that one, no queen present. Could there not be eggs that we're seeing on this frame because it's a new virgin queen or newly mated queen present who is just in that presence of mating or just newly has mated and she's not laying eggs yet. And so these were the leftover from the previous queen. Is that a possible reason we're not seeing eggs? We got to check that off. Check, yeah, that could be a possible reason. Could this be the reason we're not seeing eggs is because we need to look on another frame. This one is filled with cells of mostly capped brood. And there are very few cells that are possible cells for the queen to lay eggs. that a reason that we might not see eggs on this in this chapter, on this side of this frame? Yeah, that certainly could be a reasonable answer. Could it be because it's near the end of the season? We're into drought conditions. Pollen resources have dried up and no longer available. Would that mean that the colony might not have some eggs? Yeah, that could be a reason. So we could tick that one. Could it be because bees are preparing to swarm or abscond? And so they have moved the queen around. She's no longer laying eggs in preparation for those behaviors. That's why we don't see eggs. And once again, yeah, that could be. We could add another one. Is it because we used oxalic acid within the last week? The reason we don't see any eggs. Yeah, I'm sorry, formic acid. Yeah, that could be another one. So our mystery here has several possible answers. Now, this is the type of question I'll ask my students at the university. I've retired from active classroom teaching, but when I was active teacher, and my instructions for them and their answer is choose the one best answer, the one that might be the best response. We saw all of these are possible answers, and there are other possible answers. So if you're back in a classroom and you have to choose a best answer, which one? Which one of these 5 possibilities, all possible, could be the reason might you want to choose as an answer? I would give you full credit if you pick the middle answer. Look on another frame. This frame is filled with cells of mostly capped brood, and there really isn't a place for any eggs on here. She's been on this frame maybe a couple of times, but at least once, and she's filled up what she feels is a full frame. Okay. Now, when I do this live, and I'm sorry we can't be at live meetings, what I would do is solicit your responses in person, and I would have a bag of the honey candy, the candy that has the honey in the center, or I would have honey straws. So at this point, I would ask which one is the best answer, and a person that would right away say, well, I would pick the middle one, look on another frame, you'd get a honey candy or a honey straw. So raise your hand if you are due now a honey candy or a honey straw. I'm not there in person with the bag, but I hope I got a lot of hands up that you picked that middle one, okay? I know for most of you, it's been a while since you've been in the classroom. So trying to solve our mystery by coming up with potential possible answers. So if we were looking for eggs, hopefully this is what we would see. We're looking into the bottom of the cell, our 6-sided cells, and we can see that most every cell has an egg. Most of the cells are pretty much centered. The eggs are sort of standing up. We're looking at the small end, and maybe we have to have our magnifier out at this point, our reading glasses on to be able to do that. But that's what we mean by looking for eggs. This is what we want to see. Check. The queen has been there within the last 3 days because we know the eggs haven't hatched yet. And if they don't hatch, the bees will quickly clean them up. They will get rid of the remains of anything that's not hatching. What we don't like to see is this. Too much of a good thing. Yeah, there are eggs in cells. Look at this cell. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eggs in one cell, and sort of piled in there like cordwood for our winter wood storage. Okay, look at the number of eggs in this one. This one I think has only 3 down here. This one's only got a couple and pieces of other eggs. Look how many eggs are here. So when we're looking for eggs, we're looking for a situation, and too many can be too much of a good thing. That would be indicative of, more likely, that's a strong indicator of a laying worker condition. All righty. Now, on our frame, as we looked, it's not very evident that they have any pollen. So let's go through our mystery here. Well, lots of brood, some capped honey, but no stored bee bread. So What if we don't see that? Does it mean that rather than we call pollen and bee bread, once it's been processed, it's bee bread, the bees bring in the pollen, and as they're bringing it in, the process is starting to convert it into bee bread. So could it be there is no young brood to stimulate pollen foraging? Could that be a reason we don't see any pollen evident in our frame? Yeah, they have to have a reason to go out and get pollen. If not, they're collecting nectar. Could it be the number of cells are filled with fresh nectar of these cells over here underneath the honey, and they're just no longer, there just isn't any room for the bees to store any bee bread? Could that be our response? And again, yeah, it sure could. There's no, the numbers of cells are filled, and so they're, this chapter doesn't tell us our entire mystery. We've got to look at some more chapters. In other words, some more frames. Could it be our third choice here? No space. Look on another frame, especially the frame at the edge of the brood sphere. Not here in the center. This is obviously the center frame because it's just full of brood. So could that be the reason why on this chapter, on this side of this frame, we don't see pollen? Could that be an answer? And I think some of you will say, yeah, I like that answer. I think that might be the reason. Could it be that there's a pollen dearth or drought or a heat spell and the flowers just are not up to speed and producing pollen that the bees can get out and collect? And all of those conditions do very dramatically influence pollen foraging. So yeah, certainly could be. Are the bees preparing to abscond or swarm? Again, same thing. Could that be the reason? And we've got to say yes again. All righty. So you're answering this question on my quiz in college. And so again, the instructions were to pick the one best answer that would apply to this situation. So, which do you feel is the best of those 5 possible answers? And again, there could be others. Well, if in doubt, on your multiple choice quiz, I don't know if you remember back to days for college or when you were in high school. If in doubt, pick the middle one. So let's pick the middle one. And I think that is the best answer. So Bryce, you're going to get a honey straw because I see you are agreeing with shaking the head. So Bryce is owed 1 honey straw or 1 honey-filled candy, as are some of the others of you as well. So yeah, this is, you don't get all the answers to the mystery in one chapter in a book. And so too, in looking at one side of a frame, you're not getting your whole answer to the mystery of the hive of being able to read the brood frame. So this is what a frame of bee bread would look like, this likely at the edge. Now in this case, it is mixed in with some honey, ripening honey. So you see some cells from the flash of the camera that have a shine to them. So there are honey-filled cells or ripening honey that's not capped honey. It's not fully ripened honey, along with the kaleidoscope of colors from bee bread. And our reading here is that, our bees are really resourceful. They're getting out to a lot of different possible sources of pollen. They need that for proper nutrition. One source alone, although it might be a good nutritious source, but one source alone will not satisfy all of their nutritional needs. So this kaleidoscope of colors is saying, oh, things are in good shape. They are getting out and they are looking and finding different sources, and that's good for their bee health. Let's go another question. So we look on our frame and we don't see drone brood. Remember the frame I showed you earlier? I've switched frames here, and actually there is some drone brood here. So this lower is maybe 25, maybe 50 cells of drone brood on this side here at the bottom. But what if there's no drone brood? Or we didn't answer the question, what if there are no queen cells? So we can go through the same type of response in terms of drone brood or queen cells. And again, a one frame or one side of the frame may not be able to tell us our response or our answer. And actually, in looking for our queen cells, we would actually if we're managing in two boxes, one on top of the other, just lift up the top whole box and look on the underneath side here of the frames. And we could also then tell they're drone brood. And the importance of drone brood is that our bees are not going to swarm unless there's drone brood. So we know drone brood is being produced in the colony. So potentially there then could be queen cells of the bees preparing to swarm. Drone brood also will signify that our mites can get off to a good start, because we know mites have a much better reproductive rate. And if the adult female mite enters a drone cell just before it is capped, she can reproduce roughly on average 3 of herself, versus if she enters a worker cell, she's only able to produce on average about one additional daughter mature female. So these things tell us the progress of the colony, particularly during that very hectic spring when we think we are still ahead of the colonies, but they're playing a trick on us. They're ahead of us. Now, with drone brood, can there be too much of a good thing? Look at the amount of honey, a lot of honey. Can there be too much of honey in the spring? But look at the brood. Look at our brood area here. Not a worker cell to be seen, nowhere in sight. Not a single worker cell, all drone brood. And this is not likely to drone brood of laying workers. This is drone brood from a queen. So yes, there can be too much of a good thing, like a poorly written mystery novel versus one that really gets us thinking. So in this case, it's not so subtle that the bees are telling us something that's going on in this colony. The queen is not the queen that we want in this unit, because she's only laying the brood that's developing into drones. Too much of a good thing for queen cells. Whoa, look at the queen cells. Just ripe with queen cells. There's capped brood, but also capped queen cells. Queen cells that seem to be originating from worker cells. Oh, that's an important part of our mystery, because that means something else has occurred in this colony. This is not a colony preparing to swarm, as we might think with these 4 cells here at the bottom of the margin. No, as we look further into our chapter, we find the queen cells coming out from the face. And then we look at the base actually of this cell here, particularly, the base was not a queen cup, it was a horizontal worker cell. So this is an emergency situation. They are raising a queen. You can see several queens. The bees don't put all their eggs in one basket. In other words, all raise only one emergency cell. They will raise a bunch of them, just as they will raise a bunch of queen cells for swarming. So we need to read our story carefully by a good mystery writer. And so this is a good mystery hive because of what they might be doing. So yes, we can have too much of a good thing. And I mentioned honey. I mentioned honey before. Can we have too much honey in the spring, particularly as that colony begins to expand? Can there be too much honey? So here's a frame mostly of honey, some with watery capping, so indicating the honey's probably been in there a while. The honey is closer to the cappings here than it is to these whiter cappings over here. But if this is a spring colony seeking to expand, the door is closing for them to expand that sphere, that brood area, because they've got to get rid of the honey first. They've got to get rid of the honey, using it for their energy to keep warm on those cool spring nights, because the queen just doesn't have the cells available to go ahead and expand. And our reading here is that if that is the situation in a colony, this colony might swarm at a smaller number of bees, earlier in the season simply because the brood area can't freely expand. Oh, that's really part of a mystery of this particular colony, which we get as an answer by reading the book, by reading the frames. So in our look in our action central part, in the brood area, overarching, what are three things we hope that we will know after we've looked at our book, after we've looked at some frames? We would like to hope to know that our brood is healthy, our brood pattern looks okay, and our colony has a queen. It has the queen right condition. She's laying 1 egg per cell. She has some drone brood, and is particularly going out of her way to find those cells for drone brood, but is mostly producing worker brood. Okay, so how do we want to read our frames to be able to tell that? For open brood, in other words, brood that is not yet the cap stage, healthy means the larva is white, it glistens, it's in that C-shaped form. It's pretty much all in the same age. So all these larvae look to be pretty much the same age. A couple down here a little bit older perhaps because they've gone maybe through an extra molt. But more importantly, they're sitting on a nice generous pool of worker jelly. So you can see the amount of food in here. This is a good reading wet brood or open brood with a fair amount of nutrition that is available to them. The nurse worker bees are producing a lot of the glandular brood food, and they're being very generous. And that's what worker bees need to be able to grow up to be big and strong, healthy adults. So for open brood, we'll look at the amount of brood food. We want to see the brood in the C-shaped, white and glistening, not any off color, not pale color, not with that sheen like a liquid covering their body. We want to look at the amount, estimate the amount, and we can roughly keep in mind that there should probably be a ratio. For every amount of eggs that we see, we should see about double the amount of open brood and 4 times the amount of cap brood. And this reflects the fact that eggs are 3 days, open brood is 5 to, we say 6 days, and then cap brood another 12 days. So it should be in a ratio of 1 to 2 to 4. So the amount. And we want to look, particularly in open brood, to check it's not diseased. Now, in open brood, the main diseases that we're going to be interested in trying to check on are European foul brood, EFB, not American, European, chalk brood, sac brood, and this issue that we call the IBDS brood syndrome. And that stands for Idiosyncratic Brood Disease Syndrome. And if any of you understand the term idiosyncratic, I didn't, I had to look it up. It means I don't know. So it's a brood syndrome. The brood's not healthy. It doesn't look healthy. It's dying, but we don't know why, okay? This condition is sometimes called snot brood, because I recognize we're near the dinner hour for some of you, and sorry about that, but it really looks like the decomposing brood in the cell looks like a piece of snot, okay? Well, we don't see any of that here. And each of these have distinctive qualities to what they might look like. And I'm not going to go over those this evening, but for those that might not be familiar, take a look at it. Now, for the cap brood, which will be most of the brood in the colony, I'm getting reflection from a light here, so I'm going to switch a little bit my position to perhaps get out of this light here. It's bouncing off my floor. Cap brood, we're looking at some different things now. You know, here's our pattern of cap brood, a capped honey in a corner, and here's our cap brood. So what we want to see is a solid pattern. Do you see a solid pattern there? Someone raise their hand for a honey straw. Yes or no? Okay. The capping should be convex, not concave, not sunken down. We don't want to see perforations. There might be some cells that are just in the stage of being capped, but the hole is going to be in the middle. Perforations are like slits or like tiny holes in those cappings. The amount, and there should be a lot more cap brood than there will be open brood in any colony. We can look then for Varroa mites or the effects of Varroa mites, so that brood that's been capped and then recapped, for example, or brood that has, it should be in a cap stage, but the bees have taken the capping off of it. And so we have what should be a cap brood. We can see inside, it's white and it glistens. So it's healthy, but the capping's been removed. And that's an indication of hygienic bees for looking for, have detected Varroa mites. And of course, again, we're hoping that what we're looking at for the cap brood is not a disease condition. And we look for AFB, American foul brood, in the cap stage. That's the stage where AFB will show up. So we're looking for sunken cappings, perforated cappings. We're going to remove the capping if it's still in our way of looking inside. And then we look inside and we see ugliness for if it's American foul brood. Something that smells bad, looks bad, it's decomposing, it's fallen to the bottom of the cell. It's a very off-colored. It's cafe au lait, like you put a lightener in your coffee, half and half or something in your coffee, or caramel colored. And then the other disease that we're going to be able to detect in cap brood is this PMS syndrome, parasitic mite syndrome. And actually, the easiest way for us to tell is in the brood cells. So some of us are also relabeling this as a little bit of parasitic mite brood syndrome. The adult syndrome of parasitic mite syndrome is not enough adults to cover the brood. The brood syndrome is this spottiness to the pattern, uncapped cells that should be capped, cells that are not going any longer. The remains have already been moved out, and then our snot brood condition. So we've got a number of good characteristics for brood. It's sometimes hard to tell if they're not enough adults. So hence parasitic mite brood syndrome. So this is part again of our mystery. Hopefully we're not going to see something as serious as American foul brood. We're very likely going to see effects of the parasitic mite brood syndrome or the snot brood condition because that is now very common. And it depends on the fall of the year. Many of those colonies will not survive if we're seeing a heavy case. So along with healthy brood, we want to see if the brood pattern is okay. And what do you think of this one? Here's some capped honey, distinctive different cells, brood cells. A good brood pattern here. Certainly not in my book. This is our plastic frame, drawn cells, but not all on the same stage. Not a lot that are not brood. Maybe she's come back and laid some eggs. So mixture of open brood and cap brood. Not a good looking pattern at all. It could be due to any number of factors. It is not necessarily a brood disease. Could be chilling a brood, could be some other factors. I mentioned looking at cap brood for American foul brood. So just a quick recap. We're going to be looking for the meltdown stage, the dehydrated larva that never made it to the adult stage. So what we call the scale, this last slide, last illustration at the bottom here. The smell hits you right between the eyes. Just this colony doesn't smell right. It doesn't feel right. It's not sounding right. Something's wrong. The color, the black and white doesn't show the color, but this is going to be this very off white to very caramel colored as it starts dehydrating all the way to that stage. Sometimes the pupal tongue, a false tongue that goes across the cell, this tongue sort of It just barely makes it to the pupal stage, and the tongue gets stuck at the top and it's going across. And then particularly the Ropey test. So we've taken a stick and we put it in one of these very caramel colored, off color cells. We smashed it around in a cell, and now we draw it out. And if it draws out like you're drawing taffy, that is, quote, a positive Ropey test, and a very characteristic test to indicate that that cell had is dying from the bacterial disease, American foul brood. If we see one, we're likely to see more. And you can see the spottiness. That was our secret. Why did we look at that cell? The cell was sunken. There was a little tiny perforation in the cell. And then we took the rest of the capping off and took a toothpick or forceps or a stick and roped it out. So hopefully not seeing that in terms of our reading of the book. And then to wrap up with the other adult cap stage is the bee PMS, or the bee parasitic brood syndrome. In the fall, we will often see the snot brood, but then when it dehydrates, it becomes the scale. The adults just don't look good. Look them right between the eyes and you know, assess, you know, are they healthy looking, and are there enough of them? And certainly not. A poor colony performance. They're just not expanding in the spring. They're just not looking right in the fall. If we do a Varroa read, the numbers are going to be high, whether we're looking at the sticky board or whether we're doing a alcohol or soapy water, soapy dish, soapy container sampling, or powdered sugar. And then many of these colonies, we're going to confirm. We see this pattern, spotty brood just everywhere, no organization at all. Food mixed in. This colony has a very high probability will not get through the winter period. It'll be one of our spring dead outs. So those syndromes that we'll see. And at this stage, you might want to investigate that chapter, go back and reread some of it or whatever. We want to look closely. So here we've pulled out a larva that didn't seem right. It wasn't maybe in the right position, wasn't white and glisten. So we're pulling it out to get a closer look at what might be the condition. It might be healthy. It just didn't appear right. When we shook the bees off the frame, maybe it got dislodged a little, so it wasn't sitting right at the bottom. To us, it looked like a bee larva out of place. Well, we did it when we shook it, but it's worth a much closer look. Okay. So what we want to do in terms of reading our mystery: what is unhealthy? What was unnatural? What smells should we be expecting that we're not getting, or smells that we didn't expect that we're getting? Off color of the developing brood, for example, and brood that's out of place. Mixed bag, lots of mixed brood. In this case, the brood here is now reached cap stage. And here the larvae are great big C-shaped larvae. They're filling the whole cell. And if we come back in a day, they too will be capped. And as we come back the next day, we might have all of this area capped. So reading that pattern as well as what's in those particular cells. So brood healthy, looking at both open brood and cap brood. We ought to do both while we're in the brood area. Brood pattern, okay. And then our colony isn't going to go anywhere. We're never going to finish the book in our mystery unless it's a queen-right condition. In our reading, is our colony queen-right? Does it have a mated laying queen? So how are we going to answer that? So to know if we have a queen-right condition, a question for you again. Do you need to see the queen? Do you need to see the queen if we have a queen-right condition? Marge, what are you doing with your screen? Looks like you're cutting something, or maybe if you, I'm sorry, a little distracting here because it's on my screen. Thank you. Do you need to see the queen? Question. Do you need to see the queen? So raise a hands. How many would say, yes, we need to see the queen to know our colony's queen right? Good answer? Yeah, yeah, sure is. If Uncle Joe is in from Ontario and looking at your colony, and you go out with Uncle Joe, give him a veil and look at the colony, and you go through the colony and you don't answer the mystery. You can't tell Uncle Joe that, yes, we got a queen in this colony. And so Uncle Joe goes back to Ontario. Do you think he's going to give you high marks as a beekeeper? You went into his colony, he went into your colony, and you couldn't even tell him if you had a queen in there, right? Well, what's the rest of the family going to think of you now out here in BC, back the rest of the family back there in Ontario? So yes, in that situation, yeah, you kind of need to see the queen. You need to show Joe, here it is. Look at her, how fat she is, how lovely she is. Look at that beautiful shiny crown she has on it. Look how much bigger she is, yada, 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 okay? Well, if Uncle Joe is not in town and it's just you looking at the colony, maybe you'd rather use this answer. No, I don't need to see the queen. I don't need to see the queen because who wants a honey straw? If I see eggs, I know in the last 3 days she's been there. Beekeeping isn't rocket science. So yes, they're queen right, at least within the last 3 days, because I saw eggs, normal eggs. Now, another answer, it's never all black and white, is it? Another good answer, some of you might want to answer this time, is maybe. Maybe I need to see the queen. I want to make a split on this colony. Splits are much easier to do. You can get splits going off to a much faster start if you know which part of the split colony has the queen. The part that you took away, or you left the queen in the original. And either way, you can do a split. It depends on what you want to do. So yeah, maybe is another pretty good answer. So with that in mind, for those particularly that said yes, and those that say, well, because I want to do something, I do need to see the queen maybe. So answer this question. On this frame, can you find a queen? It's not a trick question. There is a queen here. There definitely is a queen here. And so those that want to answer yes, see how easy it is? Didn't you pick out that queen right away? Isn't it really? The queen has a mark because marked queens are easier to find in that maybe situation when we do want to find a queen, make a split, etc. Isn't it easy? Okay, so who found the queen? Hands up. And if you said that's the queen with the red mark right there, good eyes. You are a queen finder. For the rest of us, yeah, this is not a fair question. You don't have it in your own hands, and it's a computer screen, yada, yada. I'll give you all those excuses and still give you a honey straw, okay? So marked queens are much easier to see, as you can see. That red queen is much easier to see than if she didn't have that red mark on it, right? Of course, it's tough. It's tough finding queens. So the no answer for most of us is we found eggs, and that's close enough, okay? Or young larvae. Now, I've talked about adult population, so I'm through in this question for you. This is reading the colony. So here is a colony, a frame that we pulled out, and we've got the covering of bees, a pretty good mantle of bees, which we want to have if it's a brood frame, and there indeed are brood cells underneath there. So now the question I have for you is, how many adult bees are on this frame? Or you might want to answer, are there enough adult bees on this frame to cover the brood? All right, depends if you're an engineer and you want to be very precise, there are X number. Or if you are a beekeeper and say, yeah, there are enough bees to cover the brood. A little bit light in the middle, but yeah, you know, this is a good frame of brood and there are enough bees. So let's go for you engineers. Are there 2,000, adult bees? Are there 1,000? Are there 750? Or would you say there are 500 adult bees? Okay, so this is like a multiple choice. This is for all the marbles, in this case, a honey straw. I'll make it easier. I'll make it like a true false. So I'll take a couple of numbers away. There's more than 500, but there's not 2,000. Okay, so if that was one of your answers, you've got to come up with another different answer. So are there roughly 1,000 bees covering the side of this frame? Or is it closer to 750? Da-dun, 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 da-dun. Come up with a number? If you said they're close to 750, actually, if you counted them all quickly and you came up with 737, you are correct. How many honey straws do I owe for the number of people we got on here, right? We've got 29, wow, 29 people. So I probably owe a lot of honey straws here. Now, how did I determine that? Is I took the picture and then I put a computer dot on every thorax that I could find. And so I let the computer do the counting. I'm not crazy. I'm not going to count all those damn bees. Okay. But this is a way to train yourself to be able to come up with some things for numbers. All righty. Let's wrap up a little bit with our mystery. So I got two frames. So which of these two frames is easier to read? Frame A or frame B? So like you go to the eye doctor and he puts that thing in front of your eyes and he flips switches. Which is fuzzy, A or B? Which is clearer, A or B? So which is clearer? Is it A, to be able to make a reading of that frame, and a different frame, B? Well, if you answered A, it's easier to read, but why? Because we've shaken the adult bees off there. We can really see what's going on. So we've cut down all that extra verbiage of the author and really gotten to the plot of our story. We can see cap brood, a nice amount of the stored bee bread, a nice big pattern, a natural comb. You can see it's a wired comb, actually, the horizontal, the vertical wires, but bees have left it open to go from one side to another as they like to do so. This is a little bit of problem in the spring, and they can put queen cells right in that opening as well, and those can be harder to read sometimes. Okay, and even some honey, some liquid honey. So easier to read because it doesn't have the mantle of bees. All right, let's look at a couple. It's all about timing and about seasonal manage of bees. So let's look at a couple seasonal frames. What season would you think this frame, or what time of the year, what season would you think I took this frame out to give you the reading? Okay, so you're looking at cap brood here in the middle, empty cells, and then another capping of cap brood. The cells in the middle are darker, indicating they're going to be closer to hatching. In fact, there's a little few of them hatching right here in this area here. A more travel stain. The cells here are newer, lighter capping, as there's some brood here that's still not yet capped. So winter, spring, summer, fall. Yep. Spring. The queen came on this frame, laid here, went to another frame. The weather improved. They stored bee bread around there. She came back and laid some more cells. They used the bee bread up, so these cells look empty because the bee bread is gone. So she was on the frame twice within the last 12 days. Good, fast, expanding colony. Great news. Okay. How about this frame? You saw this one before. Here's that queen cup. Here are the ladders between the boxes. A little bit of honey in the corners. Winter, spring, summer, fall. I'd love to have this be a spring frame, but it's more likely going to be your summer frame. because full, more fully expanded and likely to be closer to the center of the cluster too. How about this one? Winter, spring, summer, fall. Trick question. It could be spring, it could be fall. Hunkering down in the fall, they're pushing the brood out. They're not letting her lay eggs because they're putting in that nice fall honey the bees are going to overwinter in. Or it could be the edge of the brood frame. Look at where we're pulled this frame from. This is frame number 2, right here, frame number 2 from this side of the hive. It could be the very edge of the cluster. This side was probably towards the center. So it could be that spring colony that hasn't yet eaten this honey up, and so they're expanding. I actually took the picture in the fall, and the other clue you can look at is look at these cappings. Okay, very typical of some of our fall honeys that we get. Beautiful cappings. We'd like to steal this frame and remove that, but the bees need it at that point. So I think a fall frame. Natural comb. But look at what's going on here. What's this mystery of this natural comb? Okay, we left a leading edge. We didn't put foundation in. So here's our frame. It's like a shallow, medium depth. Here's our top bar. Here's our bottom bar. We didn't put foundation in, but we put in a leading piece of wood. And notice how the bees have built nicely within our outline. They are really behaved. They've anchored it already at the bottom to give it some stability. But what else can we read? What else is the mystery telling us on this frame? Look at here, the center heart. Look at this nice heart. Is worker cells. But what's out here? The lighter. Sorry about that. Let's go back. Didn't need to go there. Look at out here. What is it? What are these cells? Yeah, they're drone cells. They are indeed drone cells. So this frame, when it's complete, is going to have 2/3 or more drone-sized cells and only 1/3 of it worker cells. Is that ideal? Well, that's what we get with natural comb. You get what you ask for, okay? This is also a good frame to use your drone brood removal from. As the queen comes in here and lays eggs, she will lay fertilized eggs in these worker cells, but she also lays some unfertilized eggs in these wings where the drone cells are. And so we could come in here in a natural comb and then lop off these drone cells once they reach the cap stage. We would wait until the cap stage, and we could lop them off, and we would be doing drone brood removal as our mite control. Natural comb. And here's an oops frame. I had a full-size box, but I put in my Western super, my medium super frame. And so this meant the space underneath there to the box down below was empty. The bees don't like that. They can't do anything with that empty space. They can't go across it. So from the bottom bar, they built comb. So all this is natural comb. But notice what kind of natural comb it is. It's the drone cells again. Worker cells in our frame, but drone cells down here. So I can use this oops as a way of managing my mites by cutting out drone brood. I'll take my hive tool and just slip right along here, the bottom bar, and then I've got, look at all the food for the chickens. Well, if you don't have chickens and you've got kids or grandkids, then take a serrated knife and take these cappings off and shake the brood out and then fry up the drone brood. Yum, yum. They really are. Put a little bit of honey on it and disguise it in some eggs, some scrambled eggs in the morning. They'll never know the wisest. Just say, well, I used a big pepper shaker. That's why you got all these specks in the scrambled eggs. Good protein for the family or for the chickens. Well, Ian indicated I wrote my 10th book, and that's the Complete B Handbook. I hate the title; it's not complete. It's for those that are interested. The rest of the family interested in bees. It talks about where bees developed and how they developed, the importance of pollination and evolution. It talks about how we do start with bees, but it's not a beekeeping book. And then the other one, the textbook that Ian mentioned, the Honeybee Biology and Beekeeping. And these are both available on Amazon. I'll be glad to send them up, but the mailing cost is just going to kill you as I send them up. So I hope that you'll have a chance to pick up a good book. And every time you're in a colony, recall that the colony itself is a good book. So get your elbows into it, get all the way into it, and figure out the mystery of what the hive is trying to say to you. Bryce, Ian, those are the comments that I want to try to present tonight for the group. I don't know if we've had stuff come in on chat or people want to unmute and have questions or not. I'll stop sharing so we can maybe look at some faces.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Dewey. We'll do a formal thank you to you in a moment, but I would like to open it up to members to be able to ask questions. So we'll try it with unmuting and see, as long as that doesn't get too chaotic. I think that'll work well. And if it does, we'll move to the chat mode. But if you've got a question, please hold your hand up or put your hand up in the reactions bar at the bottom.
I see a lot of people came up with 1,000, Bryce.
Yes, I saw that. I saw that. So you saved some honey straws there.
There you go. Sorry, I missed it. What is BB? B is bee bread. That's the processed bee pollen. BB is bee bread.
Yeah. So
and why are there holes in a full sheet of brood? That was because it was a spotty brood pattern. It could be to a number of factors, as I indicated. The most common one is our bee parasitic mite syndrome. How long is this meeting approximately? Probably too long, I guess.
It's about 2 hours, but
yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we want to make sure people get a chance to ask questions as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I do have one question. I'm fairly new at this. I've only 3 or 4 years, and I thought I knew stuff, but now I know nothing. Why are the bees on the natural comb that you just showed, the last frame? Why are the queens laying this many on the outer sides of drone? What's the purpose? They obviously have a reason. We maybe don't know, but what's the reasoning for putting that many drones in there?
A great question, Klaus, and we don't always look into the mind of the bee, but basically the queen has to lay an unfertilized in that cell. She doesn't have a choice of what egg she can put in there. She measures the diameter of the opening with her forelegs, and that dictates whether she's going to have release sperm and fertilize the egg or not release sperm. Now, it is the workers that are actually building the comb. So why in that natural comb are there so many drone cells? I think that's the genesis of your question.
Yes.
And bees like to have a balance. They do like to have drones. We think of drones as not contributing. They're not feeding the brood. They're just eating the stores. They're not doing any work in a colony. But colonies do like to have drones. And so that natural comb reflects, quote, the natural condition, which we thwart in most of our colonies because we insist on mostly just worker size cells in those frames. So that is the natural condition.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They won't just keep building and building and building drone cells because the drones do not contribute to the work of the colony. They're critical for reproduction, but not for work. And so they will limit the number of drone cells eventually. But that's an interesting juxtaposition of what we manage in our managed colonies versus what bees do in a natural colonies. And so that's why some people like to have a few natural combs interspersed in between their supported foundation combs, their frames.
Oh,
So the
they
bees
even
can
things
do the
out.
natural.
Yeah, they even them things out themselves.
Yeah, they're evening things out. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
great question.
Goes to show I know
It's a tough
nothing
one
now.
to answer, but a great question.
Okay, thank you.
Very perceptive. Sure.
Any other questions?
I would just ask one thing still about the natural comb. If you wanted to do the honeycomb, to cut honeycomb, now will they start doing drone first and then in the later of the season switch that to honey, or how do you go about it?
Yeah, a good point. If you put that natural comb in early in the season, they're going to do like you saw, lots of cells of drones. Now, if you put it in just about the time that the nectar flow is starting, then they're going to much more likely put it all worker cells and put honey in it. And then you can cut it out, make cut comb, for example, or put it as chunk honey, a piece of comb in a liquid. Yeah. So it depends on the time of year where you put that in. And to help ensure that they get it straight, a good way to manage that is to put that frame outline between two combs that are already drawn, so that they can't do it this way. You want them to go with the frame. Yeah, so timing is everything. Great question.
Okay, any others?
I love that dark queen that's behind your head there, Nikhil. That's a really dark queen.
I'm just scanning the screen here to see if there's any other questions, Dewey, before,
Can I ask a question?
absolutely.
With your oops frame, could you use that as a management tool, like adding that medium on a regular basis, getting them to draw out the drone comb, and then scraping that off kind of as your spring kind of mite management or early season kind of mite management?
It would be early season, you're correct. Yeah, and in some cases you would actually scrape it even more than one time, a couple different times. So yeah, it's very much part of the management. Your other option is to buy the special full-size drone comb, and usually those are colored green, just so you can quickly tell the difference. They're plastic, and sometimes the bees seem to be reluctant to build on that plastic, and you'll get drones of all different ages. I just seem to have a lot better luck by doing the oops, so putting that half depth frame into the box. It's the full depth. They just don't like that little bit of a space underneath. And if I'm controlling the amount of drone comb and all my other combs in the county, I will almost 100% get drone size comb built there. And early season, it will be brood. Now, later season, as the last question by Mikhail, honey might be put in there. But that's not tragic. You can cut it out and have some pieces of comb honey. But early season, cut it out and you've got nice, good drone brood to eat. Or feed the chickens.
Gonna have to get some chickens, I can see that.
Have to get the chickens first, huh?
Yeah, I gotta have to get them. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, do we have time to touch on mite control a little? Or is that kind of off the topic?
You asked Dewey that, see whether or not he's got time. That's my bigger concern. Are you okay to answer a question on that?
Yeah, remember you've got some specific things that you can or can't do in the province. What I would hope that we would be doing for mite control is sampling, figuring a number, a threshold, and many people put that at no more than 3% of the adult population. So if you take a sample of 300 adults, that's no more than 9 mites that come out in your sample, or under 9 mites is okay. And then through the year, we might use different materials. There are the synthetic, which is the amatraz. And then there are the acids, both oxalic and formic. And then there are the essential oils, the Apiguard and the Apilife Var. I think I'm not sure if Apilife Var is approved in the province or not. But they're the essential oil, thyme oil, essentially. And again, and then there are the non-chemical means. We talked about drone brood removal, of dividing colonies and making splits, another way to also manage them. Keeping the bees more widely separated, site selection. And we need to borrow that queen over Mikhail's shoulder there, because stock is very, very important, what kind of stock that we might have. Now, if we import queens from New Zealand, we know they're very rigorous with American foul brood, and we're not likely to get American foul brood from that importation. If you're getting queens from the States, there is a possibility you're going to get the very defensive Africanized honeybees that come up with the queens once she starts laying eggs. So there are risks in terms of all of that. So many people like to have the colonies that are successful raise more queens, and then steal queen cells and requeen with queen cells. So all those are methods that results in a brood break, and so that's another way to control mites. There are dangers with all of the materials. One of the issues with formic acid is that it often stops the queen from laying eggs, sometimes up to a week or more, and it will kill some brood, some of the open brood. So whenever we use the formic acid, that may occur. We are badly misusing the tool of oxalic acid. It really only should be used, whether it's dribble or whether it's evaporative sublimation. You change the crystals to the gas stage. That should only be used when there is no brood in the colony or next to no brood. So that's roughly between middle of November to middle of January, we would use that tool. Or when we do our splits, all of the cap brood goes to one of the colonies, to usually the split that doesn't have a queen. And then the original colony can be treated with the dribble or the evaporation, because it doesn't have cap brood. And once the cap brood hatches, depending how we requeen, if we don't have a queen, we're going to let the bees raise their own queen in the split. And so those, after 12 days, there is no longer cap brood in the split, and we can use oxalic acid at that time. So these are all tools. I very strongly recommend that you go onto the website, if you're not familiar with it, Honey Bee Health Coalition. Honey Bee Health Coalition, HBHC, it's a .org, and then look up tools for Varroa management. Tools for Varroa management. And it lays out both for you in Canada and us in the United States, what materials and conditions where they work best, conditions where we should try to avoid using them. And it lays out these very specific information, both for the tools of chemicals and for the non-chemical tools. So tools for Varroa management, just use your search engine to look for that, or use your search engine to look up Honey Bee Health Coalition. And you'll find all the information that you might want, and probably more than you need. Thank you, Mikhail. Honey Bee Health Coalition .org/Varroa. Thank you. Thank you for putting that in the chat. So if you didn't see it, Mikhail put it into the chat, the specific address. And thank you for the question. Did that help answer? I've only gone over the top of it, but perhaps that helped frame some of the questions you might ask of the tools.
That was a great answer. Thank you.
All righty.
Excellent. Yeah, and we'll make sure that we get that out posted on our website for information as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
So,
Be good.
yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, any
And I
other
highly
quick-
recommend it. I was the principal author on it. So, but it is being very widely used. A lot of people are finding it very, very helpful. And it is both Canada and US specific.
Okay.
Excellent. That's great. Okay, I think we'll close it off on questions, and I'll turn it over to Klaus, your first vice president, to formally thank Dewey for this evening.
Well, Dewey, I just wanted to thank you very much. One of the best presentations I've sat in for a long time. Learned a lot. Well, now I know less than I thought I knew. So, but
It's
very
a good book,
information.
right? It's a good
Right.
book. You get into it and you think, well, I know right away who's the who done it, and then you find out you didn't know till you get to the end.
That's one of the, as a new beekeeper, that's always the biggest challenge, is to read the frames.
It
And
is.
I'm always one of the ones, I hate disturbing them. Because like you said, every time you disturb them, you've basically, the colony has to rebuild itself again.
Yeah.
So I'm always reluctant, but then on the other hand, I've lost a few hives. And I have some issues with Hawaiian queens. They want to go back to Hawaii all the time. I don't know why.
Don't they though? They love that tropics.
So anyway, I'm on behalf of the Kamloops Beekeepers Club. Thank you very much. It was a great presentation. And hope we can do that once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very
all.
much.
Good. I'm not going to stay for the rest of your meeting. I'm going to get my meal. Ian, good to see you again. Thank you.
Great
Take
to have
care. I
you.
hope to see all of you at a meeting sooner than later.
Absolutely. Take care. Stay well.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right.
Good evening.
Go ahead, say bye.
Right.
Okay. There we go. Everybody can see the agenda again, I believe. So we've got through our first portion of the meeting. We're going to move on to committee reports. This should be relatively straightforward and relatively quick. I don't want to drag this on at a great lengthy meeting, but certainly need to cover off some things. Committee reports, the idea here is that each one of our committee chairs are just going to present what they have, if they have anything to present. And I think the largest thing for everyone in the club to realize is that each one of these chairs are looking obviously to build people under them in their committees so that they can complete work. Part of the idea of this is that they will develop what they're able to achieve during the year. So if the committee is small, there may be only 1 or 2 items that they're going to be able to take on. If they have a large flourishing committee, they may take on 5 or 6 things that they believe they can accomplish within the year. So that's the idea. And I'm going to let our webmaster speak to one of the pieces that we've put on the site, which will help you. But to start off with, our governance chair is Lawrence. And Lawrence, have you got anything to present this evening to membership?
Hello there. No, I have not. I was just looking up governance, and so I'm just figuring out governances myself. As of yet, I have no members to this committee. So were we going to work on members for these committees tonight, or how will we go about doing that?
Absolutely. And we've got a form that is online to make that a little easier as well, Lawrence. So maybe what I should do is maybe start with Mikhail in fairness, because we do have a piece that has been done on the website, and I can speak to it, but considering he's the creator of the document and the technology, I think we'll turn to Mikhail first. So Mikhail, why don't you give us a backgrounder on what's going on with your committee and also how people can join these committees.
Okay, well, I'm having the technology IT, so I'm kind of dealing with anything with IT for the club, the Zoom, the website, and all. Right now, being really busy with creating this Google Workspace for the club. We are still having our emails hosted at one place at our web host, but we're kind of going to move that hopefully after this meeting in a week or so over to Google Workspace, and it'll help with our emails. In regards to the form, we have a committee form, engagement form that I created online. It's not 100% finished. I still have a few more things I need to add to it, but we will send out the URL so people can click on it right away. And you can read about the description on each committee. And if you're interested, you could more or less put your name in and all that, stating that you're interested, and we'll get that and we'll reach out to you. In a couple of days, I'll have it all finished up and we'll send something out. In regards to the website, I've been working quite a bit, updating the pictures, adding more pictures, changing some of the content, but I would need to have some other people to help me, just reading over things, helping creating some of the content and fill in the content. So if someone would like to help with that, I definitely could take some people there. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Mikhail. And I think Nancy and Joanne had some interest in assisting a little bit with that web design and content. So I believe they'll jump on board and help you with that, even though they're also chairing other committees as well. But there's some there, and hopefully other members that are willing to jump on. So Lawrence, just to get back to yours, that's basically the structure we've created so that we don't have to sit here this evening and get hands raised and then try and get contact information. It's actually loaded with the content, and the way to reach these people is all logged right into our website so that we're able to follow up. So that'll make life a little bit easier for each one of you as chairs. Does that help then, Lawrence?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So we've kind of covered off governance, where we're at on that. Board development, I did not see if Gary was on. I thought he was, but he was earlier. Yep, he is on. So Gary? Can't see Gary. I know he's on.
Yeah,
Oh, there
no,
he
I'm
is.
here.
He's coming on. There he is.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to share a screen, but that's okay. Can't do
Oh,
that.
you know what I'm sharing? Do you want me to drop off?
No, well, I was just gonna, just for a moment.
Yeah, done.
Oh,
And then Mikhail will have to open it up so that you can share screen, because you have to co-host. So
Oh,
we'll take
sorry.
just a moment. Yeah, it's just going to take a moment here. That's just so we don't have Zoom bombers.
Tell me when it's ready.
Are we close, Mikhail? Hold up a thumb when you're ready. He's muted and mumbling.
Well, if it takes too long, I can just talk.
Okay, is it Gary?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it's Gary Martin.
Gary, so sorry, I was in a totally different. So you are co-host at this point, so you should be able to do that. You should see share screen on the bottom.
Yeah, I'll go back into this, share screen.
Yep. Open the document and then share screen.
Can you see it?
No, not yet. You need to make sure it's open on your desktop and then.
Yeah, it is. I can see it on my desktop, just a PDF, so that might be why.
It should be open on
It
a
should
PDF.
be work fine.
Okay.
Maybe you just start the video.
Oh, there you go. Now it's coming.
Okay.
There you go.
There,
Now
you
it's
see it.
up.
Okay,
this-
I just put this together, and I don't know if this would be a useful format for people to
Yep.
see what's going on with the various committees. Yeah, you
Can
could
you
easily
zoom
see.
in?
Pardon?
Can you zoom in? Just plus, 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 plus.
Up on the top.
Where?
Control
your
P.
document.
Control P.
Control P. Okay.
Oh no, that's the print. You see the plus and minus just underneath on the bar in the middle, smack middle, top middle.
Just over.
yes,
There
yeah.
you go. Very, yeah.
Plus,
That's it.
plus, 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 plus,
There you
plus.
There
Okay.
you
There
go.
you go. Now we can see. Perfect. Excellent.
It's
Over to
just
Mike.
okay, I won't move it around. If you can see it, that's good. It's just a one page where you could see who's on what committee, when they start, when they stop. And I don't know if that's a useful way for the club to look at what's going on with the different committees and board development.
Yeah, I thought it was a great form, Gary. And just for the members that maybe, because they're only seeing a small portion of it on the screen right now, the whole idea is that under each one of the categories, it tells, the role. It also says how long the term is, and it says whether or not they're renewing. The only thing that I found was that from a legend point of view on using blue dots or whatever, on mine, when I went in to try and do it, Gary, it was not user friendly just because it wouldn't let me load those, that legend on. So I don't know why.
It's probably because I did it on my iPhone.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a reasoning, because yeah, the legend, in order to put a blue circle or a diamond or whatever, it wouldn't allow me to do that. So I think we just need to clean that form up, and then I think
Yeah.
it'll be much easier for everybody. So maybe if you don't mind, just maybe work with Michaela on that, just to make sure that platform is functioning well. And then I
Okay.
think it'll be an excellent tool. The
Gary,
whole
could-
objective of the board development is just to make sure that the board continues in a continuum, and there's people moving in, and if there's positions opening up, it allows the general membership to know that there will be those positions coming open. For example, Rob Hunter will be stepping off at the end of the year. We'll be looking for a new secretary. He just wants to step back. He's very busy in his life, and we want to respect that and allow him to step back for a couple of years, and I'm sure he may come back after that, but we're going to give him a break.
Yeah, that's
could
all
we
I have.
zoom
I
out of
just,
this? Could we back up to the Zoom so I can see the whole thing? All I see is like a couple of block.
There
we
you go.
Good,
is
thank
that
you.
good?
Yeah,
One
that's
more
good now.
click. That's good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
just thought it was a way you could see where, what people are doing when they're coming off. If you have people working on committees, it might be a hunting ground for certain positions, so you know who to approach, or if they're interested, how do you support them in going in that direction?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, it's about making sure, and part of that is your committee role as well, Gary, just to make sure that you're reaching out and touching conversations with people, new members and so on, and moving them into open positions, and suggesting that here's a position coming open next year or the year after. It might be something you may be interested in, because they may have an interest in it or experience in it. And I think that's the whole idea of the board development committee, is to keep the board developing as we go. And so there should be no major shocks and no big gaps where all of a sudden we have little to no one on the board, but in fact, everybody is moving up succession and moving into different directorships or into committee leadership. So that's the primary role of that.
Yeah, and I'll unshare my screen, but closing, I'm like everybody else. I'm looking for 2 people to participate in my committee, so.
Excellent. Excellent.
Help,
so
please.
Keep that, yeah, help. I think that's the biggest plea that we want. So we've got 23 people on. I know a number of them are chairs, but we are looking for some help. Again, remember that many hands makes for light work. If there's only 1 or 2 people trying to do all the heavy lifting, it will be a long, arduous task. But if we can get 3 or 4 people on these committees or more, it will make life a lot easier. And I think it's really a great way for everybody to participate. You learn a little more, and we move forward. So I think it's a really positive way to look at it. The next person is our events chair, and that's Nancy, but I did not see Nancy on. Is she actually on this evening? Because usually she just has to phone in. Nancy, are you online?
She was actually the owner, and I'm not sure if she's the one that called in there for the 5773410.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that is Nancy.
She's muted right now. I think Nancy, check your audio.
Because I believe that is her number, is it not?
There we are.
Yeah, we can
That's
hear it.
Nancy. Hi, Nancy.
Okay.
Hi. All right.
Yes, so due to COVID-19, most of all the outreaches that we had have been canceled. We usually do CD Saturday, and it was at the farmers market this year, but they didn't allow any displays, so we couldn't do our sales or display there. And then Day of the Honeybee, we usually do at the farmers market, and of course, we couldn't do it because of no displays. The only thing that's kind of left is the home and garden show, or I guess it's a home show in October. However, if it's canceled, they say that you can't get your money back. And they might postpone it to another date, and then you just have to go with it. So it's pretty costly, so I would think that we would not do that. We haven't done it for the last 7 or 8 years anyway. So if we waited until next year, it is a really good place to show honeybees and to sell honey for new beekeepers, but I think this year is probably not a good idea. Let's see, in the calendar, if we're going to do the calendar this year, we need like 4 or 5 people to volunteer before the end of May for writing and putting the calendar together, and then we'll need like 50 really high quality photographs for the calendar. So I'll just leave it at that, and if we get volunteers by the end of May, then we'll go ahead with it, and then otherwise I think we just need to not do one this year.
Okay.
And the lifetime membership now is on every year we can nominate one person for a lifetime membership, and it's for a long standing member of our local club and the BCHPA. And you can nominate somebody. It's on the website, I believe, now too, so you can go on to it, and if you feel like there's somebody that should be nominated, you can fill out a form and nominate somebody.
Okay, that's fantastic. Anything else, Nancy?
Nope, I think that's it. But the main thing is the calendar. It's just if we're going to do it, if people can volunteer before the end of the month.
Okay, I think you've heard the plea. So that form is online. Mikhail's just going to tweak it a little bit, and then there'll be a URL sent out to everybody. You'll have a chance to look at it. Certainly have a good look at the events and possibly participate in the calendar. Nancy needs a little support there, and let's see if we can't make that happen in the next 10 days here as we're moving in towards the end.
Yeah, and then next year, if anybody wants to volunteer for any of these events, they're really, really good. They get, if you teach at one of them, you learn also. So even if you're a brand new beekeeper, you can always teach somebody something, and you always learn something by doing it. So
great. Yeah, I think that's great advice. So thank you for that. Okay, thanks, Nancy. We're going to round up some people for you. Moving on to our next committee, fundraising. Joanne?
Hi, everybody. I really don't have anything to report. We haven't been doing our regular meetings or having our field days where we used to have some fundraising little fun activities or fun things there. So again, if somebody's got ideas, once that form is up there, you're welcome to contact me, and I'm open to pretty well anything for fundraising. So nothing to report, but looking forward in the future to doing something.
Excellent. Thanks, Joanne. And I know right now, I mean, the biggest thing right now is we're forming these committees. So we're really looking for some support from the general membership to jump in and support. And then I think we can get some initiatives moving forward. So next chair is our education chair, and that's Ian.
Yes. Okay. I've been thinking about the education role, and I need some feedback from members if this presentation tonight was the kind of educational presentation that the club is looking for. And we would be mixing local speakers and possibly other speakers such as Dewey that are available for Zoom until we're able to get away from that. Just need lots of input, lots of feedback. What does the club want in terms of education? I also considered two other issues. One was the mentorship program and whether that falls under the education chair, and the school-based presentations, whether that falls under education. And I think if those two, the mentorship and the school-based, do fall under education, then we need to have a subgroup, a group that's a part of the education group. If the mentorship and the school-based presentations are education, then we need to have two groups looking after those specific aspects. From what I remember, the mentorship program was very, very structured and well laid out. There were rules about what a new beekeeper could ask of the mentor and the roles and those kind of issues. And with the school-based, we have, when we were able to do school presentations, there was a committee that was, I would think there was a committee that was active in organizing all those school presentations. So those are some of the issues. At first, for education, I thought, well, we're talking only about the presentations that are done for the members at meetings. But then I thought, well, maybe mentorship and school-based presentations should be there too. So
I think that's probably a good place to house them, Ian, but I agree that I think you need subcommittees off of them because the amount of work is far greater than one person can do. So I think without a doubt, is there anybody that has an interest in leading the mentorship? Is there anybody that wants to hold up a hand that would jump in with Ian on that? Let's have a look for that first. I don't want to put people on the spot either. The whole idea is we can do it online, but I want to take advantage of keeping those things rolling. So anybody? No? Not at this point. So we've got education in the schools as well. So that's another one that I think that needs a subcommittee off. So if there's somebody that has a real interest in doing that, I would ask them to speak up now. If not, let's see if we can get somebody online that when the URL gets sent out, and we'll see if we can pick up some volunteers on that side. Because failing that, then those things just won't get off the ground. Joe?
Nice, I don't hoping to do that. I like talking to beekeepers because every time you talk to somebody, you get new ideas.
Okay.
Yourself.
There you go, Ian. You got somebody there.
okay.
So Joe's going to jump in. So he'll do one of the subcommittees there for you. That's great. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that.
I've known Ian a long time. I don't mind help. I love to work with him.
Excellent. Perfect. It's fantastic. Okay. So
Thanks, Joe.
does that help you then, Ian? And then we'll see if we can't fill the other one through
Yes.
the
Yes.
website. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Communications, and Christina's online tonight. She's a new beekeeper, new to the club. I spoke with her and we had a couple of brief conversations, one more lengthy. She has agreed to come on as our communications chair, and she's going to help us out with potentially blogs and some other interesting things for website, those kinds of things. And we will officially nominate her at the board level, but right now she's in the acting position until such times as we do that at the board level and nominate her into that position for the term. So Christine, I'm going to open it up for you to say a few words, and so people get to know who you are.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I hope I'm unmuted now. Yes?
You are. We can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. So I guess my kind of idea with things is kind of continue with what, I kind of see Murray doing with Facebook and seeing what kind of level engagement we can do. I'm also, since our conversations, I've kind of been thinking, I'm like, oh, I appreciate the setup here, and I'm probably going to call a lot of people and just in the sense of having those conversations. And I'm excited to learn more and just kind of use that as more kind of content, whether it is engaging through Facebook and, you know, even like Michael is even saying with content, and even then you say like calendars. So we'll see where everything kind of fits, but I think that's I kind of want to bring some things together, and that's kind of my idea in the role right now, and I'm looking forward to learning.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you for agreeing to take the role, and we look forward to working with you. But certainly, I think Michaela is getting you set up with an email. I don't know if that's been done yet, but we'll get that all moving forward, and we'll have further conversations at the board meeting next month and get working. But we'll have conversations between now and then. But again, you know, Christine is going to be looking for people on the member communications team. So the online form will be the best way to reach that and to assist. So Christine, thank you. And we look forward to seeing the amazing things you're going to bring forward for Communique to the general membership.
Thank you.
All right. And regional report from our good friend Murray. Anything new and exciting, Murray? Oh, you're muted, Murray. Sorry.
You missed the treasurer's report. You jumped. Dave.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Or did you miss Dave?
Oh, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but that's okay. I'll jump back to Dave in a second. Go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead, Murray, because I introduced
so
you.
BCHPA last Tuesday night was a meeting. They just went over a few things. BCHPA does have a broodminder project underway right now. And that is where they've give out some scales, hive scales, and some temperature gauges and humidity gauges, and it's all being monitored as a group, and I'm part of that as well. So we all share information, and then once a month they go over things and see what we can learn from seeing deeper into the hive at a different level. There is also a pollen project underway right now, where they had some money put aside to give out some pollen traps. So we're trapping some pollen, and it's all going to be analyzed and tested, and then each season. And so we will know when it's all done, there'll be a report out so we can actually see what kind of pollen we do have in the areas. Stan Reese is on the CHC, which is Canadian Honey Council. And his report was this year, if you know Stan and the way he speaks, he just said queens were a disaster. Apparently there was Air Canada, in the way Stan put it, was they cooked 80% of one of the loads of queens. So I don't know how many queens that equated to, but there was only 20% survived the flight. So that maybe could count for some of the way the queens are acting now with nukes and splits, because maybe we got the tail end of some of those ones that were kind of half cooked. And also FedEx, they actually just lost 1,350 queens. They just went missing. Nobody knows where they are. So there's a problem with queens in more than one way. There's also a new branch. The Nicola Valley have started their own branch. So they are a branch of the BCHPA. And as of the meeting last week, they had 16 paid members. BCHPA also has a tech transfer team, and they have funds set aside to hire someone to run it. So they need someone that can get it organized and run it. So if there's anybody knows anybody that can do that, just contact, go on BCHPA site and it's there. And they also have, they're looking for ways to recycle and reuse, so that in meaning beekeeping equipment, a lot of people just throw out frames where you could just take the foundation out and clean them and reuse them. So if anybody has any innovative ways that they're cleaning frames and queen excluders and stuff like that, they want to try and get those things all together so we can all share it. So that was about all that came out of that.
Okay. Well, thanks. That's very thorough. Thank you very much, Maria. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Dave, Treasurer's report. My apologies.
No problem at all. The balance at the end of April was $14,099. And everything balances. We haven't had too many expenditures. The largest one has been our website, which was done in the spring and is paid forward for the year. So we're paid up on that. Membership, we have a total of 34 new members that have paid their due. Oh, sorry. We have 34 people that have paid their KBC dues. They're not all members of the BCHPA, but that's something that we're going to contend with at our next board meeting. What to call these people and what's their status. I've been including, when new members join, I've been including the fact that if they don't join the BCHPA, they are not voting members of the KBC. So we'll attend to that at the next meeting. Otherwise, we're not spending any money, so what little's coming in is stashing up the account. So
That's great. And we're in good stead. Everything is currently paid. We have no outstanding.
There's no outstanding checks even, I don't think, except for maybe a small one for the plaques. But that'll come up in the next statement from the credit union. Total membership stands at 85, with the, you know, the difference being the people that got a free ride for this year. So I've meant to bring to everybody's attention that the dues that are paid, no matter what time of the year, expire December 31st. So just so people know they're not, they're going to be due again. Other than that, that's all I have on my plate.
Excellent. Any questions of the treasurer? I'm not seeing any on a scan. Okay, thanks very much, Dave. Appreciate it. Good job. And I know we got our signing authorities sorted out. We're on the final stages of getting that finalized as of today, I believe. So thank you for the work on that. Yeah.
Yep.
So just a quick reminder, when we talked about the BCHPA, just if you haven't paid your dues, please get them paid up if they're outstanding. And the other thing is that please make sure that your contact information is current. One of the things that we do struggle with from time to time is reaching out to try and reach people, and lo and behold, we've got the wrong email address, or we've got phone numbers wrong, etc. So please make sure that your information is current and up to date on the website. We would appreciate that. That will make life easier for all of us. Last item on the agenda is just again, time and location. We are going to be on Zoom, it looks like, for a while after Dr. Bonnie's statement again today. Looks like this is going to run on a little longer. So I'm not expecting we're going to be able to meet. Maybe by July we might, but the board meeting will be on June 15th, as you see. And so that'll be a Zoom meeting. Our general meeting, we've got one scheduled for July 20th, so we hope we can all reconvene again. If we can do it in person, we certainly will. If not, obviously it will be Zoom, and we'll forward the link out to everyone. So that concludes the meeting for this evening, and I'm looking for a motion for adjournment, if I could, please. Close. Don't really need a seconder, but I'm sure everybody will be a seconder to call it a day. Any final comments just before we wrap up? I just want to leave it open for a quick.
For anyone this year.
Thanks, Bryce, and thanks, group.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Joe and Mark.
That was
All
a
right.
good presentation.
Are
Yeah,
we
excellent.
having a scholarship this year for students?
Dave was there. I have to ask Dave that question because I think it was budgeted, but I'm not sure of that.
Are we making a donation for the use of the hall this year?
One hall.
Where they have the meeting?
We haven't been doing any meetings at all this year, so
But
we're
do
not.
we have to keep our meeting space open?
At the university? No, I've spoken to the university, and they're in a bit of a slowdown as well. So everything is on hold, including in-person classes in many cases as well. So everything is in a holding pattern. We're all in this, so everybody is kind of holding, and we'll determine what'll happen and where we may go. We may be looking for a different location. There's been a couple of options opened up, but we don't know for sure yet. So the university is still a viable option for us.
Great. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome. Any other quick comments before we close off?
Just
I'm
to
sorry.
answer that about scholarship, I didn't see anything in the budget. I'm sorry. So I'll make a note that we're going to look into that again for next year.
I don't think Ian's doing his class this year anyway, right?
That's right.
Look at the side.
That one?
Yeah.
Ian's
So-
not doing his class this year.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
And he
that's what
wasn't
the
gonna-
that's what the scholarship was for Ian's class.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no.
And you didn't do it by Zoom this year either, and I know you didn't really want
No.
to do that, Ian. So
No.
I'm certainly looking forward to next year, and hopefully things will be a little bit more back to normal, or what we're used to as normal. So, okay, any other quick comments before we wrap it up and close off for this evening? Not seeing anybody else. I don't want to cut anybody off in conversation.
Well, Bryce,
Ian?
I need some feedback on Dewey's presentation. Is that the kind of presentation that works for the club? Not
It was
every,
very good.
not every
Yeah.
month, but occasionally.
That was
There's-
fantastic.
Yeah, there's thumbs up and heads nodding everywhere from what I can see. So the reactions are coming. I think we're on the right track. So I'm not seeing any thumbs down or hell no. So I'd say that's the gift of let's do it, Ian, and maybe we look at alternating months for a general meeting, have somebody of that caliber, and maybe look at somebody outside of our region that we can maybe share a presentation with, where we do one and they do one for us. So I did speak to somebody on the island that's got a pollination project underway, and they're willing to share some of that with us. So
Could
there
I
may
just
be-
ask whether was that presentation today recorded? I missed it because I was driving back from the interior, and I sometimes the clubs make the presentations available on their website, and I'm just wondering whether that might be the case with the presentation for today.
Currently, yeah, we have to talk about that, but yes, it's been recorded. And what I've done is I have uploaded them to our YouTube channel. Now they are unlisted until I know exactly what we would like to do with them. So if we want to start publishing our BOD as well as our general meetings, then I could just start laying them into our website, but they will also be on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
we-
if I wanted to listen to the lecture, I should just go to the Kamloops Beekeepers YouTube channel? Or-
Yes, but it's not published there yet because it has to be
Okay.
processed. It's on the cloud. It had to be processed. I had to download it, then I had to upload it again, and I had to do is,
I'm
do
the
cut
digital
and dig it in and
dinosaur. I have no idea what that all means, but awesome of you to do that. Thank you.
Do you
and-
have permission from Dewey to do
Yeah,
that, Bill?
that's the thing that we also have to get clarity on. We have to make sure.
Yes.
So,
We
yeah.
need to make sure.
So we have to make sure that Dewey is okay with it. And my gut feel is that he won't want it to be public, but he may be okay with it being closed to members. And if that's the case, obviously we have to lock it down that way. And that's what Mikhail is referring to. We have to find out what our authority is to share that information. And we'll clarify that with Dewey. And once we have that, then yes, it'll be embedded in our website because my gut feel is he won't want it public.
Mhm.
Has anybody heard how scientific beekeeping Randy Oliver is doing with his health?
Oh, with his, he had cancer, didn't he?
He was sick the last time we heard, so we wonder how he's doing.
Anybody know?
No.
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 Thank you.
Sorry, Joe. Sounds like there isn't anyone online currently that knows. So,
Yeah, I heard that. Thank you.
okay. All right. I want to thank everybody for participating this evening. I think it's been a great meeting. I thought the content that Dewey presented was fantastic. So Ian, thank you for closing the loop on that conversation and making that come to reality. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in July. So thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Bye.